Hi, I'm Eusebio Rufian-Zilberman from Long Island, New York. This presentation is for the course Introduction to Music Production. I will be talking about the fascinating topic of types and usage of important studio cables. A cable is a piece of wire used to connect two pieces of equipment. A typical studio uses many cables of different types for interconnecting all the equipment in it. Because cables are moved or connected and disconnected more frequently than other equipment, they often break, causing either a loss of signal or a degraded signal, that is, a signal with unwanted noise if it only breaks partially. A large percentage of signal problems are caused by broken cables. When troubleshooting loss of signal or noise problems, it is a good idea to start by checking the cables. You will want to keep spare cables for trying them in place of your current cables. Cables are an inexpensive component compared to other devices in the studio. However, when they have poor quality, they will cause as much trouble as malfunctions in more expensive equipment. It is usually worth investing in good quality cables that will not break easily and will introduce as little noise as possible. One possible way to classify cables is by signal type and then by shape and size. In a studio, we will be using cables for audio signals, with the most common types being the 1/4 inch TS and TRS cables, the 1/8 of an inch headphone cable, XLR cables, and RCA cables. We will also have cables that carry control signals, like USB cables, MIDI cables, and SPDIF cables, either coaxial or fiber optics, like Toslink cables. There are many other types of cables, both for audio and control signals, but for this presentation we will focus primarily on the most commonly used audio cables. The first cable we will describe is the 1/4 inch TS cable, also known as instrument cable. TS is a reference to the initials for the two elements in the connector, the tip and the sleeve, which are two metal parts separated by an insulation ring, typically a piece of black plastic, like the one shown in the picture. This cable will carry a mono audio signal and the electrical ground, which is the zero level reference. It does not have good noise rejection, and for that reason it is important to use TS cables that are as short as possible. The most typical usage of this kind of cable is for connecting instruments like electric guitars and basses, and it is often called an instrument cable. A variation on the 1/4 inch TS cable is the 1/4 inch TRS cable, which has an additional part in the connector, the R in the name, which is called the ring. Tip, ring, sleeve. One option is to carry a second channel of audio, in which case we are using it as a stereo cable. Another option is to carry a copy of the same channel as the tip, and in that case we can use the two copies to eliminate most of the noise on the other end. This is called a balanced cable and can be very useful for situations where we need to carry the signal for a longer distance, where a normal instrument cable would pick up too much noise. It is important to note that physically it is the same cable and connector, and we are just using it as a stereo or as balanced, but it is the same. The difference is in the equipment itself that is being connected, that needs to have the circuitry to use it as a stereo or as mono balanced. There is a TRS cable that is similar to the 1/4 inch but smaller, the 1/8 of an inch cable or headphone cable, because it is commonly used for connecting headphones. It has a smaller size, which can be an advantage in some cases, but the smaller size makes it also less robust than the 1/4 inch cable. In some devices, the connector has two ring parts instead of one, making it a TRRS cable. The extra ring typically is used to carry video information in multimedia cables or control information, for example in devices that use it for volume control. A second type of balance cable is the XLR cable. The first cable of this kind that was manufactured was called the Canon X. Then the manufacturer added a latch to prevent the cable from getting disconnected accidentally, and this one was the Canon XL. Then the manufacturer started producing a plastic version and a resilient polychloropylene version and called them Canon XLP and Canon XLR. Nowadays this cable is known as XLR regardless of the manufacturer and the material. The most common variation by far is the 3-pin mono balanced XLR, although there are variations with more pins. The 3-pin XLR is used most often for connecting microphones, and it can be used also as a general balance cable for carrying a signal over a longer distance than unbalanced cables. When used for microphones, in addition to the audio signal, it can carry what is called phantom power, which provides the necessary power for some microphones to be able to operate. The last kind of audio cable for this presentation is the RCA cable, which was originally produced by RCA, the Radio Corporation of America, as an inexpensive cable for easily connecting a phonograph to a radio that was used as an amplifier. For this reason, it is also known as a phono cable. It is unbalanced, and typically it is used in pairs for a stereo signal, although it is also common to find them in 3 or 5 cable configurations for the video signals in some multimedia equipment. Most of the time it is color-coded, with a different color used for a different signal, like white for the left channel, red for the right channel, yellow for composite video, or red, green and blue for component video. RCA cables are quite common for smaller pieces of audio equipment, often consumer grade, like tape units, CD players and recorders, or small synthesizer modules. Something very important to remember is that even if the connector on a cable fits into the corresponding socket, that does not guarantee that the signals will be compatible. In some cases it will be necessary to attenuate or amplify the signal in a cable before 2 pieces of equipment can be connected properly. The other type of conversion that we will often want to do on a signal is converting between balanced and unbalanced. There is a very useful device called a direct box that can do this conversion, and often it can also do attenuation if needed. Using a direct box will allow us to have a very short instrument cable connected to the direct box, and then a longer cable for transporting the balanced signal all the way to the location of the processing equipment, like effects, mixing, and so forth. For example, the direct box in this picture can convert between XLR and quarter-inch, and it also has an attenuator. In the studio, there are many other cables in addition to the audio cables that we have seen in the previous slides. The other major category is cables that carry control signals. In this slide we can see the pictures of some of these, like MIDI DIN cables used for connecting keyboards and synthesizer modules, USB cables used for all kinds of computing equipment, and also for modern keyboards and synthesizers. Sony Philips digital interconnect format cables, which is abbreviated to SPDIF, which can use different types of connectors, like coaxial or Toslink connectors, where typically the cable itself is made of optical fiber instead of copper. Something to be careful about is that the connectors can be physically compatible with audio cables. For example, the SPDIF coaxial connector has the same shape and size as an RCA cable, but we should not mix them up. As we said at the beginning, cables are a piece of equipment that often breaks. We can mitigate problems with cables in different ways. For cables that don't need to be moved, we should attach them to the wall or ceiling with clips whenever possible. Cable tester boxes are not expensive, and they can be very convenient for periodically checking all the cables, or for quickly testing a cable that we're not sure if it is working correctly. Always remember to keep a few spare cables for replacing those that suddenly go bad. A typical studio uses a wide variety of cables. In this presentation we saw the most common ones and described how they are typically used. The most important thing to know about cables is that they do break, and because of that, you should 1. Use good quality cables. 2. Start your troubleshooting by checking the cables. And 3. Always keep a few spare cables for replacing those that will go bad. That's all for this presentation. Thank you very much for your time watching and listening.